My name is Clara Kelly, and I'm 22, fresh out of college with a degree in fashion design. At my graduation party in our Springfield home, my parents handed me an envelope with a thin smile. "This is from Grandma Mom," said her voice oddly flat. Inside was $200 in crisp bills. I forced a grin, but it stung. $200. For my graduation, my sister, always the golden child, got lavish gifts on every occasions, while I'd been scraping by dreaming of launching my own fashion line. I tucked the envelope away, trying to ignore the familiar ache of being overlooked. A month later, Grandma visited. She asked me during dinner, her eyes warm but curious. "Clara, did the $18,000 I sent for your fashion startup help?" My heart stopped. "Grandma, I only got $200. I said, my voice barely a whisper. Her face hardened, a storm brewing in her eyes. What had my parents done with the rest? I was about to find out something that would change everything. If family betrayals and hidden secrets strike a chord, hit subscribe and join me to uncover the drama ahead. Growing up in our Springfield neighborhood, I always felt like an afterthought in our family. My parents, Linda Kelly and Mark Kelly, had eyes only for my older sister, Riley Kelly. At 25, Riley worked part-time as a cashier at a local supermarket, barely showing up for her shifts. Yet Mom and Dad treated her like she was destined for greatness, funding her every whim with money they never seemed to have for me. While Riley spent her days shopping or lounging at home, I poured my heart into a job at a fabric shop surrounded by vibrant threads and patterns. Each stitch I made fueled my dream of launching a fashion line, but my paychecks went to rent and bills, not sewing machines or studio space. Riley's supermarket job was more of a hobby than a career. She'd come home complaining about rude customers, then demand new clothes or gadgets. "She's working hard," Dad would say, handing her cash for another shopping spree. Meanwhile, I was the one clocking late hours sketching designs between customers, saving every penny for my future. The unfairness wasn't new. It started when we were kids. I'd get secondhand clothes. Riley got sparkling dresses. I'd ace exams. Riley would skip classes, yet Mom threw her parties for effort. The sting of being overlooked carved a quiet wound in me. Our family leaned heavily on my grandmother, Mildred Kelly, who lived in St. Louis. Grandma sent money regularly, which Mom and Dad called family support. But I noticed Riley always got the best of it. New boots, new earrings, while I mended my own shirts. I'd ask Dad why, and he'd mutter, "Don't question us, Clara." It wasn't just the money. It was the way they dismissed my dreams. My passion for fashion felt like a burden to them, not a talent. One moment from high school still haunts me. At 15, I spent weeks designing a skirt for a talent show, pouring my soul into every detail. When I showed Mom, she glanced at it and said, "That's cute," before praising Riley's new phone case. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. Riley smirked, twirling her hair, knowing she'd stolen the spotlight again. It wasn't just about the skirt, it was about my place in their world, always second to hers. My best friend Sheila Dixon saw through it all. We met in college, bonding over late nights and big dreams. Sheila worked at a bookstore chasing her own goals, and she understood my frustration. "Your family's blind to your talent, Clara," she'd say, her voice firm but warm. Her support kept me grounded when I felt like unraveling. At the fabric shop, I'd lose myself in sketches, imagining my designs on a runway. But every dollar I earned went to survival, not my vision. I'd stare at my worn-out sneakers, wondering why my parents saw Riley's charm, but never my drive. Confronting them was pointless. When I tried, Mom would cut me off with, "We're doing what's best, Clara." Dad would shrug, avoiding my gaze. Riley would laugh it off, saying, "You're too intense, Clara. Relax." Their words hit like pins, sharp and precise. I swallowed my anger, channeling it into my work, but the unfairness festered. Grandma's letters from St. Louis were my lifeline. She'd write, "Your designs are special, Clara." Her words a rare spark of hope. But I couldn't help wondering why her money seemed to vanish into Riley's hands. The thought gnawed at me, a thread I wasn't ready to pull. A few weeks after my graduation, I started noticing things that didn't add up. Mom and Dad began flaunting new luxuries they're spending wildly out of character for our modest Springfield life. Mom came home one day with a sparkling diamond necklace claiming it was a treat for herself. Dad bragged about his weekly spa visits, raving about massages and facials at some upscale salon downtown. Their sudden extravagance made my stomach churn. Where was this money coming from? Our family wasn't rich, far from it. Yet there they were acting like they'd won the lottery. Riley was no different. My sister strutted into the house one afternoon, a designer handbag swinging from her arm, its logo gleaming under the kitchen light. "Isn't it gorgeous?" she said, tossing her hair. She pulled out a brand new smartphone, the latest model, and started snapping selfies. I stared, my jaw tight. Her supermarket job barely paid for gas, let alone $1,000 bags. I caught her eye and asked, "How do you afford that, Riley?" She laughed, brushing me off. "Mind your own business, Clara," she said, her tone sharp. It wasn't just the bag or the phone, it was the way she acted, entitled, like she deserved it all. I couldn't shake the unease. One evening, I found Mom in the living room admiring a pair of emerald earrings. "These are from Grandma's extra support," she said casually, not meeting my eyes. Extra support. Grandma sent money to keep our family afloat, not to fund Mom's jewelry obsession. I pressed her, my voice steady but firm. "What extra support, Mom?" She froze, then snapped, "Don't interrogate me, Clara. It's family money." Her deflection only deepened my suspicion. Dad walked in sporting a new watch and changed the subject, asking about dinner plans. Their secrecy was suffocating. The pieces didn't fit. I remembered Grandma's letters always mentioning her support for the family, but if she was sending money, why was I still scraping by at the fabric shop, saving pennies for my fashion dreams? Riley's new toys and Mom's spa trips didn't match our usual budget. I wanted to confront them, but doubt held me back. What if I was wrong? What if this was just how families worked and I was being paranoid? The thought made me hesitate, but the questions kept piling up. One day, I vented to Sheila over coffee. "Something's off," I said, my hands gripping my mug. "Mom says it's Grandma's money, but it doesn't feel right." Sheila leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You need to ask more questions, Clara," she said. "Your family's hiding something." Her words hit hard, echoing my own fears. I nodded, but inside I wasn't ready to face the truth. Confronting Mom and Dad meant risking a fight, and Riley's smug attitude didn't help. Still, the doubt gnawed at me sharper each day. The final straw came one weekend. I overheard Mom on the phone laughing about a bonus from Grandma. "It's more than enough," she said, her voice light. My heart sank. More than enough for what? For Riley's handbags. For Dad's spa days, I stood frozen in the hallway, my mind racing. I wanted to barge in, demand answers, but my throat tightened. Instead, I slipped away, my suspicions growing heavier. Something was wrong, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth was out there, waiting to unravel everything. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Grandma, and my heart leapt as I read her message. She was coming to Springfield for a visit. I hadn't seen her in months, and the thought of her warm smile brought a rush of comfort. Grandma had always been my anchor, the one person who saw me when Mom and Dad didn't. Her visits were rare, since St. Louis was a 3-hour drive, but they were always filled with her stories and encouragement. I clutched my phone, already imagining her hugs and the way she'd ask about my fashion sketches with genuine interest. I remembered the little gifts she'd sent over the years: a set of colored pencils when I was 10, a sewing kit at 14, each one wrapped with a note saying, "For your dreams, Clara." Those tokens meant more than money. They were proof someone believed in me. But now, with my suspicions about Mom and Dad's spending, I wondered what else Grandma had sent that never reached me. The thought twisted in my gut, but I pushed it down, focusing on her upcoming visit. I wanted to tell her everything: how I felt invisible, how Riley always came first, but the idea of opening up scared me. I met Sheila at our usual coffee shop to share the news. "Grandma's coming," I said, my voice a mix of excitement and nerves. Sheila's eyes lit up. "That's your chance, Clara," she said, leaning across the table. "Tell her how your family treats you. She'll listen." Her words were firm, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Sheila had seen me struggle balancing my fabric shop job and my dreams, while Riley coasted through life. "You've been holding back too long," Sheila added. "Grandma deserves to know the truth." I nodded, but my stomach knotted. What if Grandma didn't believe me? What if she thought I was stirring trouble? Back home, I kept the news to myself. Mom and Dad were in high spirits, planning a big dinner for Grandma's visit. "It'll be nice to see her," Mom said, her voice too cheerful. Dad nodded, polishing a new cufflink he'd bought. Their excitement felt off, like they were hiding something. Riley, as usual, was glued to her phone, probably showing off her latest purchases. I watched them, my unease growing. Would they act like the perfect family when Grandma arrived? The thought of their fake smiles made me clench my fists. I lay awake that night replaying Sheila's advice. Telling Grandma about my feelings meant risking a blow-up. Mom would snap, Dad would dodge, and Riley would roll her eyes, calling me dramatic. I could hear her now. "Why do you always make a big deal, Clara?" But keeping quiet felt worse, like betraying myself. Grandma's visit was my chance to be heard, but it also meant facing the tension I'd avoided for years. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing with what-ifs. Would Grandma understand? Would she see the truth behind Mom and Dad's excuses? I didn't know, but the weight of my silence was heavier than ever. The day of Grandma's visit arrived. Our Springfield home buzzed with chatter as Mom set the table for a family dinner to welcome Grandma. The air felt light at first, filled with the clink of glasses and Riley's laughter as she showed Dad a new app on her phone. Mom hummed, arranging a platter of roasted chicken, her face glowing with a forced cheer. I helped in silence, my nerves on edge, but the warmth of seeing Grandma soon kept me steady. She walked through the door, her silver hair neat, her smile as kind as ever. I hugged her tightly, feeling a flicker of safety in her arms. We sat down to eat, the conversation flowing easily. Grandma asked about my job at the fabric shop, her eyes bright with interest. "Clara, how's that fashion line coming along?" she said, her voice warm. "Did the $18,000 I sent for your startup make a difference?" The room went still. My fork froze, mid-air, my heart pounding. $18,000, I swallowed hard, my voice barely steady. "Grandma, I only got $200, I said, my words cutting through the silence. Mom's face paled. Dad's glass hit the table with a soft thud. Riley's smile vanished, her eyes darting to Mom. Grandma's expression darkened, her kindness replaced by a sharp edge. $200, she repeated, her voice low but firm. She turned to Mom and Dad, her gaze piercing. "Linda, Mark, where's the rest of the money I sent for Clara?" The room felt like it was shrinking, the air thick with tension. Mom stammered, her hands twisting a napkin. We used it for family needs," she said, her voice weak. Grandma leaned forward, unyielding. "What needs?" She pressed, her tone demanding answers. Dad tried to intervene, his voice shaky. "It's complicated, Mildred," he said, avoiding her eyes. But Grandma wasn't having it. "Complicated?" she snapped. "I sent that money for Clara's dreams, not your whims." I sat frozen, my pulse racing. Riley shifted uncomfortably, her fingers clutching her phone. Grandma's eyes locked on Mom again. "Tell me the truth, Linda," she said, her voice like steel. Mom's shoulders slumped, her face flushed with guilt. "We spent it," she admitted, barely audible. "On spa visits, jewelry, and things for Riley." The words hit me like a punch. Spa visits, jewelry. Riley's designer bags flashed in my mind, each one a betrayal. I stared at Mom, then Dad, waiting for them to deny it, but they didn't. Riley muttered, It wasn't just me, her voice defensive, but Grandma cut her off. Enough, she said, her anger directed at all three. You took Clara's future and spent it on yourselves. My chest tightened, a mix of shock and validation washing over me. Grandma's fury was a shield protecting the dreams I'd thought were out of reach. I couldn't speak my mind, reeling. The money I'd never seen, the chances I'd never had it, was all gone, poured into Mom's earrings and Riley's phone. Dad tried to explain, mumbling about family priorities, but his words felt hollow. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't for me. Grandma's voice softened as she turned to me. Clara. I had no idea, she said, her hand reaching for mine. I nodded, my throat too tight to respond. The truth was out raw and undeniable, and it changed everything. After the tense dinner, Grandma pulled me outside, led me to the porch, her face still tight with anger from the confrontation. Clara, there's something you need to know, she said, her voice steady but heavy. She sat on the bench, motioning for me to join her. For years, I've been sending money to your parents, not just for the family, but for you, specifically for your fashion dreams. My breath caught. Years. She explained how she'd sent thousands bit by bit from her savings in St. Louis, trusting Mom and Dad to pass it on. I thought they were helping you, she said, her eyes clouded with regret. But they kept it for themselves. The truth sank in like a stone. Every dollar I'd scraped together at the fabric shop, every late night sketching designs, was because Mom and Dad had betrayed me. Grandma's voice trembled as she listed the amounts: 5,000 here, 3,000 there, all meant for my startup. I felt dizzy, my mind flashing to Mom's spa visits, Dad's fancy watch, Riley's endless shopping sprees. They used it all, I whispered, my voice breaking. Grandma nodded, her hand squeezing mine. I'm so sorry, Clara, she said. I should have checked sooner. Then she straightened, her tone shifting. I want to make this right, she said. I run a small design studio in St. Louis. Come work with me, learn the ropes, build your brand. My heart raced at the thought of a real studio surrounded by designers, not just bolts of fabric. And I own a little apartment in Springfield, she added. It's yours if you want it. A fresh start. Her words were a lifeline dangling in front of me, but they came with a weight I couldn't ignore. I stared into the dark torn. Leaving home meant stepping away from Mom, Dad, and Riley, from the family I'd always tried to please. Part of me still loved them despite everything. Could I walk away? Mom's tearful confession at dinner echoed in my mind, not tears for me, but for being caught. Dad's excuses. Riley's defensiveness, they'd chosen themselves over me over and over. Yet the idea of leaving felt like cutting a thread I'd clung to my whole life. What if they needed me? What if I failed on my own? I thought of my dreams, the sketches piling up in my room, the runway I imagined every night. Working at Grandma's studio could turn those dreams into reality. Living in her apartment meant freedom no more. Riley's smirks, no more. Mom's dismissals. But it also meant facing the unknown. I'd be leaving Springfield, my job, the life I knew. The weight of the choice pressed on me, each side pulling harder than the last. Grandma watched me, her eyes patient but firm. You deserve this, Clara, she said softly. Don't let their mistakes hold you back. Her words cut through my doubt, reminding me of the years I'd spent feeling invisible. I thought of Sheila, who'd always pushed me to stand up for myself. She'd say, this was my moment. Slowly, I nodded. Okay, Grandma, I said, my voice steady for the first time that night. I'll do it. Her smile was warm, like a promise of something better. I'd chosen my future, and there was no turning back. A week later, I stood in the dim living room of our Springfield home, my suitcase packed, ready to face Mom, Dad, and Riley for the last time. The air felt heavy, broken only by the faint creak of the floorboards. Mom sat on the couch, her eyes red, clutching a tissue like it could hold her together. Dad stood by the window, his face tired, avoiding my gaze. Riley leaned against the wall, her usual smirk gone replaced by a tense frown. I wasn't here to mend things. I was here to walk away. Clara, we're sorry. Mom began, her voice quivering. We didn't mean to take so much. Dad stepped forward, his tone pleading. We're family, Clara. We can fix this. Riley's voice was small, almost unfamiliar. I didn't know it was your money, Clara. Please don't go. Their words stung, but they couldn't undo the years of betrayal. I'd spent my life chasing their approval only to find they'd stolen my dreams for their own luxuries. I took a deep breath, my voice firm. You took Grandma's money meant for my future and used it for yourselves, I said. I can't trust you anymore. Mom's tears fell, but they felt empty. We'll make it right, she begged. Dad added, Don't leave us, Clara. Riley reached out, whispering, You're my sister. But I shook my head. I'm done, I said, turning away. Their voices faded as I walked out the door, closing behind me. Grandma had cut off all support, her decision final after the truth came out. Without her money, Mom, Dad, and Riley were sinking. Credit card bills stacked up, their lavish habits now a trap. A neighbor mentioned collection notices piling at their door, unpaid utilities looming. Riley's supermarket job couldn't cover her designer purchases, let alone their debts. Mom and Dad scrambled, but their reckless spending had left them with nothing. Their choices had caught up, leaving them to face the consequences alone. I moved into Grandma's apartment in Springfield, a cozy space that felt like a fresh start. Every morning, I woke up free from their expectations, my heart lighter. I called Grandma daily, thanking her for the apartment, her studio, her belief in me. You're my rock, I told her once, my voice thick with gratitude. I sent her handwritten notes sharing my progress, knowing how much her support meant. She'd given me more than money, she'd given me a chance to be myself. I started commuting to St. Louis, working at Grandma's design studio. The rhythm of cutting fabric and sketching designs felt like home. I learned from her team, each lesson a step toward my own fashion line. My first collection, simple dresses and scarves, took shape under Grandma's guidance. Her proud smile fueled my drive. I'd call her after long days, sharing every small victory, grateful for her wisdom and trust. Sheila became my lifeline from afar. We talked late into the night, her texts and calls full of ideas for my startup. You're killing it, Clara, she'd say, her voice bright through the phone. Her bookstore job kept her busy, but she'd send marketing tips or cheer me on when doubt crept in. Our phone chats were my anchor, pushing me to keep going without needing her by my side. Starting my fashion line was slow, but every order felt like a triumph. I built a small online shop, watching my designs reach customers. I wasn't rich, but I was free to create, to fail, to grow. I realized I'd spent years feeling small, shaped by Mom's dismissals, Dad's indifference, Riley's selfishness. But now, standing on my own, I saw my worth. I wasn't just their daughter or sister. I was a designer, a dreamer, someone who could carve her own path. My gratitude for Grandma grew with every step. I'd call her to share my latest sketch or ask for advice, cherishing her encouragement. Her faith in me taught me to value myself, to trust my own strength. The pain of my family's betrayal still lingered, but it no longer held me back. I'd built something real, and that was enough. To everyone who's followed my story, thank you for listening. Your support means the world. This journey showed me that self-reliance and knowing your worth are the keys to a life you can be proud of. No one can take that away. Not family, not betrayal. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do in my shoes? Share your stories below, and let's keep this conversation alive.